Prologue, exclusive Mangekyo techniques. It took me a while to finalize on this. I had several combinations of different eye techniques different from Naruto canon but ultimately finalized these three. 1. Left eye, Kagami Utsuchi, Mirror of Earth. Main function. The left eye grants the ability to temporarily display abilities within the user's vision. The user can activate this eye to project or mirror the powers of others for a limited duration. These abilities are temporary, giving the user access to a wide range of powers but only for short timespans. 2. Right eye, Junin no Sozoku, 10-year creation continuity. Main function. The right eye allows the user to permanently copy a single ability once every 10 years. 3. Finalized combined ability, Keigen Toru wa Shion Duo Manifestation Seizure. Description. Keigen Toru is the combined power of the MC's Kagami Utsuchi, Mirror of Earth, in the left eye and Junin no Sozoku, 10-year creation continuity, in the right eye. When both eyes are used in unison, they grant the ability to temporarily nullify a target's fundamental ability, rendering them powerless for a set duration. 9 comments 0 vote. Chapter 1, The Uchiha Massacre. Land of Fire. Konohagakure. Uchiha Clan. The full moon hung in the evening sky as darkness fell in the Land of Fire. Unknown to many that as the sun set over Konoha today, a family would soon fall with it. Thud. 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 In the Uchiha Clan land, the sound of hurried footsteps resounded in the quiet streets. With it, a blurry figure quickly flashed across the rooftops. Damn it. It's tonight. The figure cussed, taking out a set of paper bombs and infusing his chakra into one of them before hurling it up. Boom. The explosion immediately swept away the evening calm. In the blink of an eye, dozens of doors were kicked open and shinobi rushed outside in droves. Who is it? Enemy attack. Which bastard dares to set off a paper bomb in the clan land? Everyone looked in the direction where the running figure disappeared towards. Just as they were about to give chase. Arg. A shrill scream came from the opposite direction, causing them to stop in their tracks. The next moment, more screams erupted alongside sounds of struggle. The men and women who rushed out of their houses froze, their expressions changing drastically. Damn it. We're under attack. Sound the alarm. One screamed before charging in that direction. The others immediately followed. Rushing to the scene of the crime ferociously, their rapid steps halted and their eyes widened at what they. Itachi. Thud. The body of a clan member in the distance lost all strength and fell to the ground. Laying at the feet of a 13-year-old boy. One everyone in the clan was all too familiar with. The son of the clan leader, Itachi Uchiha. What are you? Squelch. The man's voice came to a halt. Everyone else had their pupils constrict. I see, so that's his plan. Itachi muttered and drew out his sword before rushing forward. The battle began, and ended not long after. Gen. Jutsu. The last one let out with difficulty before drawing his last breath. Itachi drew his sword and looked up. More chakra signatures were rushing in this direction. A pointless plan, alerting everyone makes no difference. It truly didn't make a difference. At least not to him. The vast majority of the Uchiha Jonin were currently at the police building while the rest in the clan land were civilians and weaker ninja. Madara was handling the Uchiha police force, while he could eliminate the rest without even using his Mangekyo abilities. It was useless to alert the entire Uchiha clan, so surely this shouldn't be all he had right. Itachi contemplated expressionlessly as he moved forward. Tonight, no Uchiha could escape, hence, it didn't matter where Seiji ran off to. He would find him and do what needed to be done. Meanwhile, as Itachi carried on with the slaughter, a young boy direly rushed towards a certain part of the clan land. His breathing ragged and his chest pounding. Everywhere he went, he set off paper bombs, jolting the sleepy fools who had no idea death was coming. Without a care for chakra expenditure, he used the Shunshin no Jutsu body flicker technique non-stop until finally reaching his destination. His silhouette materialized, revealing the image of a young teenager with dark hair, black eyes and a chakra metal sword attached to his waist. In front of him stood a simple-looking house and the light that shone within it let him breathe a sigh of relief. Grandma. He called out loud as he pushed open the door hurriedly, a mix of worry and anxiety clearly written on his face. Seiji, you're home. In the living room sat an elderly woman, stooped with white hair. Good boy, welcome home. Cough. You must be starving. Let's get you. The elderly woman was his only relative left in this world, Asami Uchiha. Nana, we need to leave. Without wasting time, Seiji ran to his room without hesitation. The sight of his grandma still alive relieved his anxiety slightly, but that if they stayed here, that wouldn't last for long. In the living room, seeing her beloved grandson call her Nana and acting irregularly, the kind smile on Asami's face withered away. My dear, what is it? Something's happened. We need to leave, now. The boy uttered as he opened his drawers, taking out several sealing scrolls. The old woman's frown deepened. Explain yourself. The son of the clan leader has awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan. He's slaughtering the clan members as we speak. It had already come to this, so there was no use in keeping it a secret anymore. Hence, he spilled the beans in order to let his Nana understand the severity of their situation. It was the night of the Uchiha Massacre. Itachi and Obito Uchiha were slaughtering their clan members relentlessly. In realization, he quickly ran all the way to his home to prepare save his grandma. Now, he was counting the storage scrolls he had placed aside specifically for this situation. Seiji. A voice called out to him, but he didn't respond. The clan members wouldn't be able to hold Itachi for long. Plus there was an Uchiha Obito who could move through space and probably a white Zetsu to track his location. Worst of all, Danzo and his team of brainwashed root ninjas. Time was of the essence. Seiji. The sealing scrolls had everything he needed. Everything he could prepare in the last 3 months after awakening his memory. In the inevitable case that he failed to prevent this from happening. Seiji. The voice called out for the third time, followed by a hand falling on his shoulder. The boy paused, then turned his head around to see his grandmother up from her rocking chair. Those kind, black eyes similar to his were gone and in its place were red pupils with 3 comma dots on its edges. Tell me everything. Meanwhile, a moving Itachi rushed forward rapidly. A sword stained with blood and clan corpses in his wake. Making quick work of the Uchiha clan, he rushed to his next destination when a figure appeared before him. Fugaku Uchiha. The boy stopped, eyes narrowing, grip tightening. Standing before him was the only true obstacle to tonight's operation. His father, Fugaku Uchiha. Itachi. The man called out. Itachi didn't respond. What lies beyond this slaughter? Are you going to show me a different future from what I showed you? Silence reigned. The weight of those words bore heavily on the teenager. Nevertheless, he did not portray a single hint of it. He had to be strong. He had to carry his mission out to the very end. For Konoha, for peace, for Sasuke. Even if it meant becoming a monster. In that moment of silence, Itachi responded. His eyes glowing to pull his father into a genjutsu. This. He uttered one word, then proceeded to display his answer to that question. This is what I see for the future of the village. And for the clan. I see. Fugaku responded. Sasuke huh. He thought before his body went out in a puff of smoke. It was a shadow clone. Meanwhile. That's it Nana. I've gathered everything. All I need is to get you someplace safe. Seiji said while pulling her. However. The woman didn't budge. So you've known about this for how long? He froze for a moment, not sure how to reply. A while. He said vaguely. I see. She lowered herself into the chair, her face thoughtful. The boy she had raised, who had once been so carefree, had been burdened by a secret this heavy for so long. Konoha has finally turned against us. Seeing his grandma sitting back on her chair, anxiety reappeared on his face. Exactly. Konoha is no longer safe. Which is why we need to act fast. You're running, aren't you? She asked, her voice steady. He nodded, guilt flashing across his face. I have everything we need to escape. We can leave Konoha tonight. Stop. Her firm tone silenced him. It had been a long time since this had happened, and here it was again. Her grandson was lying to her. I won't leave. No, not this. Seiji's face changed drastically. Seiji had a lot of worries for when this day came, but without a doubt, worry number 1 was what was happening right this instant. His Nana proving stubborn. You have too. If we stay, we'll die. Seiji. She called out, silencing him once more. Look me in the eye, and tell me you have an escape plan for both of us. Silence filled the room. His reaction confirmed it. I would follow you if we could both make it out of this. But you can only save yourself. Her words struck him like a physical blow. He opened his mouth to protest, but nothing came out. You're my grandson, Seiji. I've seen your hurried steps, your restless nights, the look in your eyes every time you tried to force a smile. In contrast, I know how you act when you have everything under control. You can leave Konoha, but you can't take me with you, yet you are going to try anyway. She had seen through him, just like she always did. Seiji had known about the Uchiha massacre for barely 3 months now. Ever since the night of Nine Tails' rampage. He constantly had blurry memory and visions affected him frequently. It wasn't until 3 months ago that it all became clear. However, not only was it not a good thing, but the knowledge he received made him despair. Seiji Uchiha, a chunin of Konoha village. Mother deceased, died during the Third Ninja War. Father deceased, died on a mission outside Konoha. He unlocked memories of his past life and discovered his true identity as a transmigrator. His father's death triggered memory awakening, which evolved his Sharingan to 3 Tomo. With knowledge of the series, Seiji knew what awaited the Uchiha clan. Worse off was that it was already too late. As of 4 months ago, the Uchiha shinobi had all been stopped from taking missions that required leaving the village. Hence, he hid the evolution of his eyes and worked hard to increase his personal strength in the short timespan. All the while trying to pull the Uchiha clan off from the road to near extinction and waiting for the transmigrator blessing that came with his race. It did. Not long after, he awakened his gift. Unfortunately, it was not what he expected. Interdimensional gateway. This was Seiji's ability that came with being a transmigrator. Its sole function was to transport him to other worlds. Worse still, this thing was experimental. He didn't have any way to identify which world he would be transported into, nor when. There was no explanation on a possible time difference between worlds or if he could come back once he decided to use it. The whole process was completely random, and no other living thing could be brought but himself, leaving him utterly speechless. Hence, Seiji hadn't made use of it since the day he got it. After all, he wasn't a total orphan. In this life, he still had a grandmother who he cared for. With the night of extermination slowly approaching, he couldn't risk running to another world. Who knew if she would still be alive when he returned? So he tried. Tried desperately to change the fate of the Uchiha clan. But time was too limited and what was happening tonight was a clear testament to his failure. He bit his lip, tears threatening to spill. I didn't want it to come to this. I thought I could stop it. She smiled faintly. You've always been such a kind boy. But kindness doesn't change the world we live in. If you have a way to survive, then take it. After years of raising him, she could tell what he was thinking. He had a way to leave Konoha. In this situation, that alone was already unbelievable. And here he was, trying to carry her with him. He shook his head violently. I can't leave you behind. I'm old, my dear grandson. Escaping Konoha is already hard enough for a single individual. I will only hold you down if I follow. The weight of her words crushed him. Seiji, she continued, her voice softening, you're young. You still have a future ahead of you. I am not. My body is old and my strength is nowhere near what it once was. I'm almost at the end of my time. Trying to save me is more trouble than it's worth. It is what you must do, my little fireball. Tonight, the Uchiha clan will most probably meet its end. Itachi is the prodigy of the clan, you can't beat him. That last part hurt. It was the truth though. Without the Mangekyo, Seiji with a newly awakened 3 Tomo was no match for Itachi, much less Obito. Hence, you must run. Use whatever way you have planned for yourself, and leave Konoha. The village will definitely hunt you down as a rebel nin. To survive all this, you'll need power. Real power. She reached up and cupped his face with her wrinkled hand. Do you understand what I'm saying? His breath hitched. You're telling me to take your. She nodded. No. I can't. I won't. Yes you can. Nana, I will not. Pa. Seiji felt a stinging pain on his cheeks. I raised you to do what needs to be done. You can, Seiji Uchiha, and you will. She snapped, her tone sharp for the first time. It is impossible for you to take me out of Konoha. I will die tonight, but I swear by our family crest that I won't die for nothing. If Itachi kills me, my death is meaningless. But if you do it, you'll awaken a power that could one day help you reclaim everything we've lost. I. The boy stuttered, hands shaking. I have already lost my son and daughter-in-law. I made them a promise, and the rest of my life was dedicated to raising you. Now it is your turn. Promise me, Seiji. Promise me you'll live, grow stronger, and come back to restore the Uchiha when you have the same power as that man. He knew who she was talking about. Madara Uchiha. Tears streamed down his face. Nana. She pulled him into a hug, holding him tightly as if to comfort him one last time. Don't make me regret raising you. Be brave, my boy. This is the last thing I can do for you, and if you ever considered me your grandma, you will fulfill my dying wish. She said, reaching out and pulling his hand. Moving it, it was placed on the hilt of his sword on his waist. She could feel it then. The resistance that came as his body and movement stiffened. Don't resist. She ordered sternly, causing him to tremble once more. Trying again, he gave in. Like two, both pulled the sword out in sync, the sound of the weapon leaving its sheath filling the air. Asami closed her eyes, feeling the water flowing down the back of her neck. Nostalgic memories flooded her mind. The time she held his hand and helped him to properly draw the symbols when he was young. Even at this point, she was still helping him. With her hands on his, she moved his hand upward, knowing that he still didn't have the will to do this himself. In a similar way, she was helping her grandson. One last time. What lovely memories. She thought. I have given you all my love, my little fireball. Your eyes will tell how much you reciprocate it. Live well, my boy. Live for both of us. Those were her final words, before the sword came down. Squelch. Meanwhile, a blur flashed into the street. With flowing black hair, body stained with blood and two tear troughs on his face, Itachi appeared on a nearby roof, staring at a house right opposite. It was his. Seiji's. The one everyone in the clan thought was just a normal chunin, when in actuality, he had awakened his three tomo. This was the last stop. The second to last place before his house where he would meet his parents. He could see the light still on. He could feel the erratic chakra signatures inside. Erratic. Itachi furrowed his eyebrows. Why would his chakra feel so unstable? Was it some kind of trap? Or a jutsu he was preparing to launch? His hands quickly formed seals. With a puff of smoke, a second Itachi leapt towards the house. It approached the door cautiously. Faint sounds could be heard coming from within. In that case, the shadow clone neared the door and stretched out his hand when a dazzling purple light suddenly illuminated the interior. It was a trap. Shunshin Jitsu quickly moved backwards, his Sharingan ready to catch any movements. However, the light barely came on for 3 seconds before disappearing. The catch was that the chakra signature disappeared with it. Itachi's eyebrows furrowed. Then without hesitation, he rushed and pushed open the door. What came into view was an empty living room. No, not completely empty. On the floor was a small puddle of blood. The true Itachi appeared beside him while the shadow clone dissipated. He's gone. Nothing was in the house. He was sure of it. In front of his eyes, there were no secrets. Looking at the blood on the ground, Itachi frowned and jumped to the roof. Seiji had Jonin strength. Elite join at best. Unless he awakened the Mangekyo, he couldn't have gone far. Seiji staggered as the floor beneath his feet collapsed into chaos. The shimmering portal churned and rippled like liquid glass, swallowing him the moment he stepped into its embrace. The sensation was exactly what he had expected. It wasn't the smooth transition of the Shunshin no Jutsu. Far from it, he felt like his mind was stretching infinitely and contracting at the same time. His head spun, colors he couldn't name exploding in his vision, blending and fracturing like shards of a broken glass. His stomach carried a nauseating feeling as he held his Nana's corpse, trying to close his eyes and block out the madness of space around him. It didn't help. The sensations were everywhere, both inside and out. Then, it suddenly stopped. The chaos ceased as abruptly as it began and Seiji was hurled forward, landing hard on uneven ground. The force of the impact knocked the air out of his lungs as he rolled on his back, gasping for breath. The world around him was eerily still. The dizziness hit hard after. Where am I? The vast expanse of green was the first thing that filled his sight. Towering trees stretched endlessly in every direction, their dense canopy filtering the sunlight into fragmented patterns on the forest floor. The wind blew past, swaying his sleeves and ruffling his hair slightly. The calmness of nature all around fell into his senses. For a moment, it was almost peaceful. Until it wasn't. Seiji's breath hitched. Ash looked down at the withered corpse in his arms. His grandma's face was pale and serene, her eyes closed as if she were merely in a dream. Yet that blossoming smile on her face as she laid, seemed to say that she slept happily. The sword clattered to the ground beside him, its once gleaming blades marred with crimson. He stared at it, his vision burning once more as tears welled up in his eyes. I'm sorry. He whispered in a cracked voice. Nana. I'm so sorry. I couldn't stop it. Low weeping came out in the midst of the forest as everything came crashing down on him. He buried his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking as silent sobs racked his body. His mind was set not on the place where the interdimensional gateway had taken him, but the aftermath of Asami's death. Unfortunately, that wouldn't last long. Thud. A loud thudding sound interrupted his mourning. Thud. The boy's shaking shoulders came to a halt. Following which, he raised his head to reveal a tear-stained face and abnormally red eyes. Each one having 3 tomo, signifying his activated Sharingan. Thud. 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 The thuds grew louder, more rapid. And for a moment, he forgot his sorrow, peering forward to see what was coming. Eventually, he did. Bang. In the distance, from between the trees. 14 comments 0 vote. Chapter 2, Mangekyo, in Attack on Titan. Unfortunately, that wouldn't last long. Thud. A loud thudding sound interrupted his mourning. Thud. The boy's shaking shoulders came to a halt. Following which, he raised his head to reveal a tear-stained face and abnormally red eyes. Each one having 3 tomo, signifying his activated Sharingan. Thud. 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 Chapter 2, Mangekyo, in Attack on Titan. Unfortunately, that wouldn't last long. Thud. A loud thudding sound interrupted his mourning. Thud. The boy's shaking shoulders came to a halt. Following which, he raised his head to reveal a tear-stained face and abnormally red eyes. Each one having 3 tomo, signifying his activated Sharingan. Thud. 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 The thuds grew louder, more rapid. And for a moment, he forgot his sorrow, peering forward to see what was coming. Eventually, he did. Bang. In the distance, from between the trees, a giant foot landed on the earth. Then the rest of it came into full view. It was a human. A very, large, naked human. Massive it was, towering over the highest branches. Its body was abnormally shaped, with a disproportionately large head compared to its torso. How it could walk without falling to the side was something Orochimaru would marvel at. With an eerily blank face, devoid of any expression, it turned itself in Seiji's direction. Its massive limbs twitched with an unnatural, almost jerky rhythm, as though it barely understood how to move. Then it leapt into the air, landed back on the floor, and ran rapidly towards him. It covered several feet with each step, closing the distance of less than 100 meters in just 2 to 3 seconds. Of course, to Seiji, it mattered little. With his Sharingan active, the creature's movements were slow enough to let him process the absurdity before him. Whatever this thing was, it was a creature he had never seen before in the ninja world. Yet strangely. I know this. He thought inwardly. Why do I know this? Memories flooded his mind. Fragments of an anime he had watched in his past life. Of endless slaughter, of man-eating giants, of 3 walls representing the last struggle of humanity. The world of Shingeki no Kyojin. I'm in Attack on Titan. The realization hit him for a moment. Then it sunk, and rising in its place was an indescribable emotion from deep within his depths. Currently, he was experiencing a lot of emotions at once. Pain, anger, guilt, sadness, but this one was different. The others all stemmed from the loss of his Nana, the last person in his life who he truly cared for. Anger at his weakness, sadness for her death, guilt for the circumstances in which it occurred. This one, however, wasn't his self-loathing. It was rage, pure, fiery, undulated rage. This stupid ability, in all possible worlds, sent me to Attack on Titan. It started as doubt, disbelief even. Finally realizing the true meaning of transportation to other worlds. And the moment it sunk in, his face twisted to the extreme. And conveniently, at that moment, the Titan neared, and stretched its hand for a flying leap. He had just killed his Nana, his last relative. And fled for his life, knowing he was too weak to avenge her. Even in all that, this goddamn cheat that was supposed to help him, took him to a world where he would get eaten instead. If the loss of Asami wasn't enough, this definitely was. At that moment, Seiji's negative emotions hit a new extreme. Within his eyes, the Sharingan spun crazily, then the 3 tomo connected and spread rapidly. In the blink of an eye, a new pattern was formed in his pupils. A powerful force emerged from them, infiltrating the Titan whose giant hand was barely a foot away. In less than a second, it spread through every limb, every joint, from the head to the toe. Then it rapidly condensed inside its stomach area at the center. The Titan knew not what would befall it. Its arm outstretched to grab the human before it and stuff him into its mouth. Inches away, when. Bang. A ripple distorted the air around the Titan's body, as if reality itself had momentarily twisted. The naked giant's movements faltered, the hunger in its eyes replaced with sudden confusion. Its hand trembled mid-air, unable to move forward. Its skin paled. Its flesh loosened. Then, like a puppet with its strings severed. Squelch. The Titan collapsed. Its body convulsed, its chest heaving as if gasping for breath it could no longer take. Seiji watched as its towering form shrunk, its muscles caving inward, its very existence unraveling as the power animating it flickered away. The Titan's massive frame withered like dried parchment, steam hissing violently from its skin. Within seconds, its body slumped to the earth, no different from a decayed husk. Its arm, once reaching for him with relentless hunger, now twitched weakly, before falling still. The Titan was no more. Seiji exhaled. He had not struck a single blow, yet his eyes alone had erased the beast's defining strength, severing its monstrous transformation and returning it to what it should have been, nothing. A sight that left its creator completely astounded. Dash 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 dash. Parody Island. Wall Maria. Dash dash dash. It was early in the afternoon. The sun shone high in the sky, fueling the perpetual blistering heat. Impacting the soil freely in some areas, while the trees huddled together to provide cover for its inhabitants in others. The wind blew, this time bringing not the fresh scent of nature, but rather a weird odor from a decaying body. The Titan laid still, steam was emitting from its corpse, or whatever was left of it, but Seiji paid it no heed. What just happened? The young Uchiha thought, inwardly marveling at what had just happened. It happened then. From out of nowhere, a pain emerged in his body. It was slight, not much compared to what he had gone through in his life and could completely be ignored. The difference, however, lay in the fact that he didn't do anything worth receiving pain. Well, he didn't think so at first. Until he felt the change in his my eyes. Seiji thought as he felt his pupils, instantly understanding the cause of all this. Mangekyo. The reason his grandmother sacrificed herself, his Nana's final help to him, was aiding his process to awaken these eyes. I see, in that case, I did this. When awakening his memories and learning his situation, he had also wished to possess these eyes. Especially when he realized his cheat wasn't a system. That wish only intensified the ultimate power of the Uchiha clan, as the elders knew it. Without possessing it, he would be incapable of influencing Uchiha's fate. Now he had it. Seiji didn't need to look in a mirror to know his eyes had evolved. The basic increase in dynamic vision compared to 3 Tomo was exaggerated enough to leave him with no doubts. The raw, unrestrained power coursing through his eyes. The vision in front of him was sharper, more vivid, as if he could see every detail of the field, the smallest flicker of movement in the trees, the rise and fall of his own breath. Even the steam emanating from the dismembered Titan seemed slow, like every second could be stretched to an infinity. The world. It all felt too clear, too defined. However, he had no joy for his newfound power. In his heart was nothing but endless sorrow. The Uchiha clan was already massacred. Technically speaking, only 5 blood members of the Uchiha were left alive. One wasn't in the same universe and one had been sealed away for years. The main reason he needed these eyes in the first place was used to awaken them. It didn't matter what he had obtained, Seiji couldn't muster up the slightest bit of joy. Not to mention, this level of clarity came at a cost. A sharp, stinging sensation spread out of his eyes, pulling him out of his thoughts. Warm liquid flowed down his cheeks. Blood. He raised a hand and wiped his face, his fingers came away smeared with red. This is it. The price of Mangekyo. The drawbacks are already taking effect. This blood wasn't just a sign, it was a reminder. A reminder that this power would erode his very vision the more he relied on it. And the pain, while mild now, would worsen. Seiji took a deep breath, closed his eyes and deactivated the Mangekyo back to 3 Tomo. The strain eased, but the weight of his situation did not. His body was exhausted, and his chakra reserves were alarmingly low. That single move, he thought glancing at the Titan remained steaming in the midday sun, took more than 80% of my chakra. Even factoring my constant use of body flicker back in Konoha, this isn't good. He let out a shaky exhalation. It wasn't just the Mangekyo's price he had to contend with. The sheer energy it consumed made prolonged battles with it impossible. Weren't Uchihas supposed to gain more chakra after awakening this thing? Where's mine? he thought as he stood to his feet. For now, he needed to move. But before he could take another step, something changed. Ah! A surge of information flooded into his mind, overwhelming him. The interdimensional gateway. His transmigrator gift had been silent ever since the first day of awakening. Today, however, it finally had a response. Just like his first awakening, the knowledge of what it wanted to pass on clarified itself. Unraveling piece by piece. World traveling. Each new world unlock requires a year's cooldown. To return to an already visited world, the cooldown time will be halved. Each subsequent return visit will cut the time by half until it becomes negligible. The time flow between worlds is 1.5. Time adjustments will be made as more worlds are unlocked. How long the transfer process took was unknown, as Seiji had lost his sense of time. Just like he had suspected, rules would be made clear after his first world travel. The implications here were immense, clearly displaying he was right to fear if he could return once he left. If he wanted to return to the ninja world, he would need to wait for 6 months. This was merely his own perception of time. In reality, 2.5 years would have elapsed back in Konoha. Then unless he had an already open world, he would have to stay there for another half a year to either transverse to a new world or return to Attack on Titan. Effectively squashing whatever ideas he once had of moving back and forth between worlds as a form of evasion. The surge of knowledge ceased, allowing him to regain his perception of his surroundings. Well, that was. He froze then, senses blaring with alarm. The wind whistling behind him, the ground vibration, and the shadow that enlarged rapidly under the inside of his Sharingan. Oh, shit. Bang. The earth trembled as a titan emerged from behind, its massive as it lunged forward and bit to its target. The jaws snapped shut on empty air where Seiji's head should have been a moment earlier. The boy himself reappeared several meters away, panting as he let the chakra flow settle. That was too close. He gently placed his Nana's corpse on the ground, his chest rising and falling in frustration. This stupid cheat. He thought, his previous burning anger returning. Is it hell-bent on trying to kill me? It was a Class 7 Titan, 7 meters, large and currently stood on all fours. It was impossible for a Chunin not to notice such a bird at close distance, much less something this large. Yet in that moment, the interdimensional gateway had flooded him with so much information that he couldn't pay attention to his surroundings. He was almost eaten twice, the second much closer than the last. In anger, the young Uchiha unsheathed his chakra metal blade, the steel glinting under the sunlight. The Titan, oblivious to its failure, rushed in his direction. An action which he reciprocated. You're in my way. Chakra surged to his feet, his movements were fast as he kicked against the ground with explosive force. It took him into the air, perfectly dodging the mindless creature as he slashed his weapon at the place he knew would kill it. The nape. Squelch. The massive body collapsed to the ground, steam billowing into the air as the regeneration halted. It ended quite fast. Seiji let out a breath, his anger down as the adrenaline faded. Nevertheless, the second attack was a wake-up call. Seiji remembered the Attack on Titan anime. A group of people who thought they were the last of humanity, battling against giant humanoid monsters whose sole purpose was to feed on them. Judging from this, he knew he was somewhere on Parody Island, the main location of the plot. In his current state, with low chakra reserves and emotional instability, the last thing he wanted was to be swarmed by these creatures from all directions. Staying here was suicide. Hence, he needed to leave, fast. Carefully, he sealed Asami's body into a storage seal and examined his surroundings before leaping into the trees. A ninja's most valuable asset was information. Trapped in this world, what he needed now was to know exactly where he was. 18 comments 0 vote. Pissed. Download the app for additional rewards. More events, more perks. Winning you more free perks. Download now. PcaNovels. Download app now. Chapter 3 The Dead Survey Corps Regiment. The grand central focus of the Attack on Titan world was Parody Island. A story which tells the tale of people who thought they were the last of mankind battling against man-eating monsters. Their last stronghold consisted of 3 walls that shielded everyone within from the horrors beyond. Wall Maria, Wall Rose, Wall Sina. Inside, the people lived as happily as they could, with vast territories that afforded them everything they would ever need. Within, they built cities, towns, villages and went about their lifespans. It was a medieval fantasy world setting. With a lot of swords and many more monsters but none of the magic. The dense forest began to thin, giving way to vast open fields dotted with sparse trees. The sun hung low in the sky, casting an orange hue on the landscape. As a result, Seiji resolved from leaping on trees to running on foot. His breathing steady despite the exhaustion that was beginning to creep into his muscles. His chakra, or lack thereof, would soon turn into a problem. In the ninja world, chakra was a ninja's lifeline. An energy that was present in all living beings to some degree. For ninjas, its uses were limitless. Just like now. Bang! The loud footsteps of a large titan spread throughout the vicinity. From his left, one was approaching him with a creepy smile on its face. It approached. Seiji gathered chakra on his legs and leapt, avoiding its grab when it did. With chakra attached to his soles, he ran up its arm effortlessly, dodging the other arm that reached out, climbing to its shoulder and drawing his weapon. The sword sliced the nape accurately, drawing blood as he leapt off. Landing on his feet, he continued his run as the titan corpse fell behind him. Sixth one. He thought as he continued on his way. It had been nearly 30 minutes since he left the forest area, and this was the sixth titan he had killed. This wasn't counting the number that he had simply decided to outrun. Ninjas were capable of utilizing chakra for augmenting physical prowess. Coupled with his already outstanding physical fitness higher than a very fit human, he was fully capable of running 60 to 100 mph depending on how much chakra he sustained. If he utilized the body flicker technique once or twice, losing these titans was entirely possible. Which he did for the first two batches, before ultimately deciding that it was better to kill them himself while lowering his speed to conserve chakra. Still, the overwhelming silence of this world gnawed at him. After all, anime and reality were two different things. He was lucky he had chakra and the ability to defend himself. The humans of this world were a different case. This world. Seiji muttered. Life here is fragile, vulnerable. No one here has the chakra to fight back. In the movies he watched in his past life, when faced against extinction-level threats, humanity had always survived by their ingenuity and their reproductive prowess. If one man couldn't kill the enemy, then 10 would. As long as it wasn't an epidemic, or an unstoppable force, then mankind would survive relying on sheer resilience and rapid numbers. Unfortunately, that concept didn't apply here. In actuality, the titans they fought against were man-made abominations that could be mass-produced at will. Mankind's numbers advantage was useless in this case scenario. Eren, the main protagonist, would show up eventually with the attack titan. Until then. Truly an uneven battlefield. Seiji didn't know the distance he ran, but he knew he couldn't keep running forever. Presently, his current location was foreign. For all he knew, he could be somewhere on the island, outside the walls. The walls were his destination, though he had no idea in which direction it was. He needed somewhere to take a break, recover his chakra, and outline his goals. Just as he was contemplating, Seiji in his brisk pace spotted the outline of a structure far into the distance. Is that a village? It was. A village on the horizon. And as he drew closer, he could make out its outline better. The wooden structures were dilapidated, smoke rose from certain parts, obscured by the buildings themselves. As he approached, the faint sound of groaning reached his ears, and his eyes narrowed. Titans. Tomo Sharingan came on without hesitation. Walking down the hill, he moved to the village entrance, his brows wrinkling at the smell that was carried by the wind. Fresh blood. Alongside the lingering stench of rotting flesh. Quite conflicting. But that wasn't the point. The rotting smell of decay meant an unburied corpse, while the wafting of blood represented a fresh kill. The village looked abandoned, with parts of the wooden houses destroyed. When all these were in the same place, it carried vital information. A titan attack happened here. People killed on a large scale, not in recent times. The smell meant corpses that hadn't been buried and had been here for months, maybe years. The blood meant something else. Fresh kill, meaning someone had died recently. Well, to waft this much, it certainly wasn't just one. Villages on the island only existed inside the walls. In that case, I have a rough timeline. The place was inside the walls and had experienced a titan attack a long time ago, meaning it was way past the start of the series. Giganshina had been breached. Wall Maria had fallen. Eren Yeager, the main protagonist, had lost his father and mother and had experienced the tragedy that would shape the rest of his life. Meanwhile, the rest of humanity had huddled within Wall Rose, turning Maria into Titan-infested territory. Giganshina was breached in year 845. Seiji estimated that he was in year 846 at the minimum. If he was inside Wall Maria, then he would see the wall eventually if he kept going in one direction. Great. Now I know when I'm not. The Uchiha thought as he kept an eye out for titans. It didn't take long to see them. Immediately, as he made a bend, the first thing he saw was a class 3-meter titan, the shortest since he got here. Still, it was a lot taller than him. Turning his gaze, he saw it was feasting on a body. Immediately, Seiji's eyes lit up with surprise. The titan rested on one knee, holding the body that laid on the floor while chewing. A portion of the man's left leg was gone, chewed so much that all the flesh was gone and what remained was the bloody bones. It ate lightly. Not at all in a rushed tone, like a gentleman savoring his meal. It had moved up after that, towards the rib sections, and had eaten a considerable part of the stomach as well. Blood, flesh and guts fell out, littering the floor beneath him. But that wasn't Seiji was surprised at. No, what truly caught him was the man's uniform. The man who was being eaten, that is. A short, light brown cropped jacket with a winged emblem on the shoulders, a long white-sleeved shirt within, harness gear straps on his body, a green cape and 2 metal objects hanging from both sides of his waist. ODM gear. He recognized the equipment. I see. He carries ODM gear on his waist. Add the uniform, and if Wall Maria had fallen, then no one should be here. What was left of humanity should all be huddled up in Wall Rows. All except one group, of course. The only group of people who would willingly venture into Titan territory. The Survey Corps. Also known as the Scout Regiment, or Recon Battalion. It all made sense. In that case, let's. Oh my. Seiji, who was about to act, halted, an expression of disbelief plastered on his face. Why? Simply because as at that moment, the eyelids of the male soldier being eaten suddenly opened. Staring straight in his direction. Seiji, who previously thought the man was dead, froze. The eyes of man and teenager collided. The man was stunned, seemingly shocked at why a young boy was outside the walls. And with what seemed like a lot of energy, he slowly raised his hand that was on the ground. Seiji watched the man's actions, wondering what he was doing. From his memories, the world of Ayat had 3 military branches, in which the Survey Corps were the ones who took on expeditions outside the walls. Sacrificing their lives to gain intel on the Titans, time and time again, in order to be of help to humanity's goal to defeat the Titans. Unlike the others, were people who truly cared for the well-being of humanity. What is he doing? Numerous thoughts flashed past his mind. Was the soldier going to tell him to run? To save himself? It was usually like that in American movies. Seiji imagined, however, the moment he looked at the man's eyes, he knew his assumptions were wrong. Help me. Seiji had his Sharingan on. He could analyze the man's expressions vividly. In those eyes, he saw fear, dread, pain. The man was scared out of his wits. In so much pain that his primary reaction was to ask for help, even when what was before his eyes was a 17-year-old kid. It hit him deeply. That horror, that terrified expression, Seiji had never seen anything like it. At that moment, a change occurred. The Titan, seemingly still oblivious to his existence, finished chewing. Then, it opened its mouth to take another bite. Seeing this, Seiji reached out to touch his wrists, on which laid a special sealing symbol he had painstakingly researched while in Konoha. Kuchios, Reiko Kenka, summoning, flash blade creation. With a slight touch, smoke emerged from his wrist. In its place upon disappearing was a large Fuma shuriken. The 3-edged blade similar to Itachi's Mangekyo pattern tore through the air, aiming right for the Titan a moment before it took a bite. Squelch. The sound of piercing flesh resounded, followed by thud. The throwing weapon embedded itself into a tree on the opposite end. The Titan froze in its movements. A second later, blood leaked from its neck before the head fell off from its shoulders. Titans in Ayat were special creatures that wouldn't die unless the nape was destroyed. The Titan body lost all strength, released its grip on the Survey Corps survivor and fell to the floor. Hey, are you okay? Seiji asked as he moved closer. He immediately realized that was a stupid question. The man did not look okay from his eyes. You. The man struggled to speak. His eyes fixed on Seiji with a bit of shock within. That didn't last long, though. His gaze quickly shifted before widening to reveal infinite horror. A black shadow slowly enveloped them. Seiji followed his gaze up, realizing that multiple Titans of different sizes had stood to their feet, peering from the buildings they previously sat behind due to the commotion. Their gazes all fixed on both living individuals. Sigh. The young Uchiha released a sigh as he gripped his sword. This would take a while. 9 comments 0 vote. Chapter 4, Plans and Pupil Techniques. 5 minutes later. In a village on the Titan-infested wastelands of Wal Maria. That was more than I thought it would be. Seiji let out with labored breaths as he landed on the floor. Behind him, the last Titan fell flat on the earth. Its blood evaporating in the air. The whole village was filled with light steam, emitting from several decomposing Titan corpses. Moving forward, the young Uchiha wiped the sweat accumulating on his forehead and controlled his breathing. In his line of sight, many half-eaten corpses were all over the battlefield. Each one wore the distinct uniforms of the scout regiment. The sight was grim, some bodies were missing heads, while others were torn in half. Leaving half-mangled torsos and limbs sprawled across the dirt. That last fight drained nearly everything I had. If more show up, fighting isn't an option. After killing all the Titans in this village, Seiji wasn't surprised why these soldiers died. 10 Titans. All 10-meter class and above. 3 reaching 15 meters. Judging from his observation, most didn't even have time to react before they were grabbed from blind spots. Not everyone was Levi. Seiji contemplated, deep in thought as he walked to the tree where the Fuma shuriken he had thrown earlier was embedded. The chakra in his body wasn't much. Just enough to perform one more jutsu. If the situation called for it, then he would use an earth release technique to hide underground on the spot. After all, Titans didn't have the basic reasoning to dig. Or did they? While in his thoughts, his movements weren't stagnant as he pulled out the shuriken and sealed it back into the sealing tattoos on his wrist. Following which, he turned to look around. The Titan corpses were disintegrating. In time, there would be nothing left. For now, the coast was clear. Seiji swept his gaze around. His sight falling on a lifeless Titan corpse that had slumped against the side of a broken house. Down below, an injured male lay against the wall. Precisely the one he had saved earlier. He rested against a crumbling wall, his eyes closed, but the labored breathing let Seiji know he was still alive. All right then. The sound of footsteps resounded. The dying soldier opened his eyes as Seiji bent in front of him. Hey! He called. This scout regiment member wasn't that old, perhaps in his mid-20s. Now that he wasn't being eaten by a Titan, the complex emotions in his eyes had died down, and it seemed that his reasoning had taken hold. Why say so? Because all he did was give Seiji a long, hard stare. Time elapsed. Eventually. You. He opened his mouth and uttered a word. Unable to finish it however as what followed was blood pouring out of his mouth. Seeing his condition, Seiji didn't react. He had no medical training beyond bandaging wounds, while this man was experiencing serious blood loss. With a leg and the flesh on his lower rib area gone, a skilled medical ninja with access to high-level medical jutsu was required to save his life. With a leg and the flesh on his lower rib area gone, a skilled medical ninja with access to high-level medical jutsu was required to save his life. Seiji didn't meet any of those qualifications, and he didn't have the chakra to spare even if he did. In a few seconds, the blood-spurting fit stopped. The man regained himself, then looked at his savior with narrowed eyes. Who are you? He asked with a painful grimace. No, more like what are you? Seiji's expression remained impassive. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. A moment of silence. Until, the soldier let out a weak, humorless laugh. You're not wrong. No human can do what you just did, not without ODM gear. It was followed by another coughing fit. From your situation, I can tell. What happened here? The man was silent, and seemed intent to stay that way. Seiji thought so at first, about to get up when he started speaking. It was a recon mission. The 34th Expedition. Our squad was part of the 2nd Brigade, on the leftmost flank. The mission had been called off, and we were to retreat. Sadly, he groaned in pain. Titans were on our return route north. Of the 19 soldiers in our flank, I'm the last survivor. The rest were all decimated. 19. Seiji raised an eyebrow. Plus you, I only counted 18. The man blinked, his face contorting in confusion. In the earlier battle, he had seen the fight process. It had barely ended moments ago, so how did he have the time to count half-eaten corpses? Seiji paid him no heed. Wall rose is north, It was the direction the same he was heading. In response, the soldier looked at him even more deeply, before his expression hardened. I see, from your words, you aren't from around here. He previously thought Seiji was something special. In truth, he was, just not how he initially thought. No, I am not. Seiji responded. The man was silent. Are you on the side of humanity? He asked a question that stunned the Uchiha for a moment, who initially thought the man would ask where exactly he came from. I guess you can say that. He thought for a moment and gave his answer. That's good. The soldier said while raising his hand weakly. On his uniform, the emblem with a winged symbol representing freedom was pulled off the piece of clothing. I don't know who you are, or where you came here for. But if you truly are on our side, that's all that counts. He said, stretching his blood-stained hand out. Take this. If you ever reach Trost, help me give it to Commander Irwin. Let him tell my sister that Richard loves her, and I wish I could have come back. In that moment, Seiji understood. So that's why. The soldier was dying. On this point, the man himself was very self-aware. Forget about whether Seiji would answer his questions truthfully. Even if he did, it would have been of no use. In his last few moments, what good would the knowledge be? Instead, he chose to ask something that would be beneficial to him. Seiji watched the man grow weaker by the second, as he faltered and struggled to keep the light in his eyes focused. In response, Seiji took the emblem, his expression unreadable. The survey let out a sigh of relief seeing this. Thank you, for saving me. Even if I wouldn't live long after. Time seemed to slow down infinitely as his brain went into overload and blanked out at the same time. In that one moment, his life history flashed before his eyes. His dead father, deceased mother, and loving sister. The last was still alive, barely a teenager who still cried whenever he left and always looked forward to him coming home. He had promised her he would. Every time. Unfortunately. I'm sorry Mina, I broke my promise. Then, with a final shuddering breath, he went still. Seiji stared at the lifeless body for a moment, his features betraying no emotions. Gently, he reached out and closed the man's eyes with 2 fingers. Rest in peace. I do hope you find it. Before he awakened his memories, Seiji had been a participant of the Third Ninja War. He was no stranger to the death of people around him. Rising to his feet, he turned his attention to the remnants of the Survey Corps equipment. Most of it was destroyed, but one set remained intact. Alongside the emblem, he carefully sealed it into a scroll for later use. Inside one of the less damaged houses, Seiji sat cross-legged. A sealing scroll was opened beside him, indicating he had taken out part of its contents. He had. Upon leaving Konoha, Seiji had bought 6 storage scrolls and numerous resources, while also converting his village merit points in exchange for Fuinjutsu knowledge. Fuinjutsu, also known as sealing art. A class of jutsu all shinobi more or less knew the basics. Unless you were Rock Lee. Its fundamental use was for sealing objects, energy, jutsu and even living beings into other objects. The last part involved the advanced forms of sealing techniques which wasn't available to everyone. Seiji included, as even the full exchange of all his accumulated military merits weren't enough. As a technique that required heavy knowledge and advanced chakra control, its difficulty could be imagined. Hence, most shinobi only had access to the basics. Primarily limited to the use of already prepared summoning scrolls with Fuinjutsu embedded on it which were sold in large quantities by the village. Shinobi, who didn't choose Fuinjutsu as a specialty, wouldn't spend their time learning sealing techniques. Not even Jonin who needed versatility as a requirement to reach their rank. In the concept of a Jonin needing to be versatile, there were always exceptions. E.g. Might Guy. Knowing there was every possibility that he would have to escape Konoha soon, Seiji had decided to do the opposite. Spending little of that period familiarizing himself with the Sharingan and more gathering resources and the Fuinjutsu knowledge needed to haul it. Thus learning the B-rank jutsu. Kuchiyos, Reiko Kenka, summoning, Flash Blade creation. Alongside the higher basics of the Funyu no Jutsu, enclosing technique. Within 3 months. Then he emptied his savings to purchase food, water purification tablets, canisters, medical supplies, poison neutralizers, emergency first aid kits, herbal remedies, tents and sleeping bags. All stuffing them into one scroll. The second scroll carried his family legacy. Seiji's parents were both Jonin, hence they left behind a lot of valuable knowledge in case a time came where for some reason, they wouldn't be there to give it themselves. Jutsu scrolls. Ninjutsu for the 3 chakra attributes of wind, fire and earth which he possessed. Kenjutsu, Genjutsu, Taijutsu, Shurikenjutsu. Uchiha Clan Sharingan Usage Notes. Chakra Nature Transformation Notes, while also carrying the Fuinjutsu scrolls he had packed up as well. The third scroll carried the vast majority of his weapons. Kunai, swords, explosive tags, shuriken. The other 3 scrolls were extras. One currently carrying his Nana's corpse and another holding the ODM gear. At the moment, Seiji had taken out several compressed biscuits and ate while resting to replenish his chakra. Meanwhile, he began to analyze his current situation. To sum it up, he was trapped here. Trapped in a fictional world from his past life. The limitations of the interdimensional gateway had already been made clear. To return to the world of Naruto would require half a year of waiting in this world. Not to mention the time difference of 1 to 5. 2.5 years would have passed back in Konoha. If he remembered right, Sasuke, who just witnessed the massacre of his clan, was still in his first year of ninja school. The time distortion would mean he would return 2.5 years before the start of the Naruto series. Aside from Naruto bearing the hatred of the village, not much happened during this time. Of course, that wasn't the issue. From Seiji's understanding, Itachi would report to the third Hokage after realizing he couldn't find him. Then, he would be declared a missing nin of Konohagakure. Either that or the whole thing would be kept under wraps due to the fact that the Uchiha clan's intention to rebel was kept a secret, and proclaiming an Uchiha who ran from being killed by Itachi a rebel would look strange. The latter option was slim. Nevertheless, Konoha would definitely send shinobi to search for him, either openly or secretly. A rogue Uchiha who knew the truth could potentially become dangerous to the village. Perhaps Itachi would take it upon himself to search as well. Of course, finding him would be a foregone conclusion. After 2.5 years of silence, the heat following it would have calmed down. What would happen after that was what Seiji needed to decide on. When he returned, he would have to deal with Itachi, kill Danzo and destroy Konoha in the process. Perhaps also Kurigakure, who were responsible for his father's death, and Sand Shinobi Village responsible for his mom's death during the Third Ninja War. But only on the premise that he had enough strength to actually accomplish it. Which led to the problem. 6 months was a short time and the current him was far too weak. Not to mention he hadn't familiarized himself with its power, simply relying on Mangekyo awakening was far from enough. The Mangekyo Sharingan, while powerful, was flawed. Using the eyes alone and the techniques that came with it, Jonin and Elite Jonin would be no match for him. That, however, would change once he met truly powerful opponents with skills surpassing regular shinobi. Sasuke's future battle at the 5-Cage Summit was a prime example. Even with the Mangekyo and offensive pupil techniques like Amaterasu, he wasn't able to defeat a single cage on his own. Beaten by Raikage, blocked by Kazekage, nearly melted by Mizukage, and would have been vaporized by Tsuchikage if not for Zetsu. Killing a bunch of samurai and defeating a few side characters was the greatest of his accomplishments in that reckless attack. That was the Sasuke who defeated Orochimaru and Deidara. With mastery of lightning-style chakra form change, outstanding kenjutsu techniques, exceptional speed and strength, alongside jutsu like Chidori, Kirin, Curse Seal, snake summoning, snake substitution, strong combat experience and an outrageously strong will. All this, paired with those eyes, and he still lost. In comparison to Seiji himself, Sasuke 8 years later, who hadn't awakened Mangekyo, was better than him in every possible way. Technically speaking, he was 17 years of age and was currently older than Sasuke would be in 8 years, yet his overall prowess without Sharingan was still Chunin. Perhaps special Jonin. Seiji's memory of the anime was a wake-up call. In the ninja world, his foundation was shallow. Rushing into Konoha to fight against an entire hidden village thinking he was invincible with nothing but a pair of consumable eyes would be suicide. At best, he would end up running away like Sasuke did. At worst, he would lose his life. How embarrassing. The pride of Uchiha must not be sullied. The only exception would be if he awakened Kamui like Obito did or something similar, which would allow him to run rampant in the ninja world. Unfortunately. My eyes. In the thrashed room, the young Uchiha reached out to touch his eyes. It had been several hours since his arrival in this world, long enough for him to understand what pupil techniques he had awakened. Neither eye held space-time techniques, however, Seiji wasn't sure he would exchange it even if he could. Left eye, Kagami Utsuchi, Mirror of Earth. Main function. The left eye grants the ability to temporarily display abilities within the user's vision. The user can activate this eye to project or mirror the powers of others for a limited duration. These abilities are temporary, giving the user access to a wide range of powers as long as it is still within sight. Right Eye. Junin no Sozoku. 10-year creation continuity. Main function. The right eye allows the user to permanently copy a single ability once every 10 years. The user must wait a full decade before they can acquire a new ability in this manner, making it a rare and strategic technique that requires patience and careful consideration. After repeated confirmation, Seiji didn't even know which category of jutsu these techniques fell under. Offensive. Support. Utility. The left eye enabled him to replicate any ability that was displayed within his line of sight and use it without constraints as if it were his own. It didn't matter whether they were bloodline techniques, or abilities that couldn't be mastered without special prerequisites. He could replicate them all. Regular Tomo Sharingan could only copy jutsu. No Kekkei Genkei. Even those jutsu had restraints as the copier must have the necessary qualifications to perform such jutsu. Like the corresponding chakra nature affinity, chakra control, unique body physiology, and so on. Without it, copying the hand signs and chakra flow would simply be useless. These restraints didn't disappear even after awakening Mangekyo, Eternal Mangekyo, or Rinnegan. Many Uchiha only had one chakra attribute. If they had two, one was fire. Sasuke Uchiha only had fire and lightning. Itachi Uchiha, fire and water. And Kakashi, who had all five alongside their corresponding nature transformations, became known as a copy ninja with more than 1,000 jutsu under his belt. An outsider gained more fame with the Sharingan than the actual Uchiha. Moving on. His left eye allowed him to ignore such constraints entirely. Wasn't this basically the greatly enhanced version of the Sharingan's copy ability? Of course, no technique was invincible. Like all Mangekyo, the limitations were there. The left eye could only copy abilities temporarily. How temporary this was would need to be further explored. Whether there were limitations on the copied ability also needed to be explored as well. Would he lose the abilities as soon as the target was out of sight? And to what extent could the replication achieve? Ultimately, it granted temporary power and would change depending on the strengths of the opponent he faced. The right eye, however, was the opposite. Junin no Sozoku. 10-year creation continuity. It granted him a permanent ability addition to his arsenal, permanently. Once added, it would become a part of his skill set like any other ability, without requiring the Mangekyo to be activated to use it. Just chakra. If its potency was anything like Shishui's Kotomatsukami, which shared a similar cooldown period, then this could potentially be the most powerful Mangekyo ability to ever exist. In addition, the combined use of both eyes granted an additional power, just like Obito. Kagen Toru wa Shion Duo Manifestation Seizure. The combined power of the Kagami Utsuchi Mirror of Earth in the left eye and Junin no Sozoku 10-year creation continuity in the right eye. When both eyes are used in unison, they grant the ability to temporarily nullify a target's fundamental ability, rendering them powerless for a set duration. Back in the forest, Seiji had used this ability to kill the first Titan. By subconsciously focusing on the Titan and using both eyes in unison, he had cancelled its Titan form, causing it to lose its Titan powers. If it were a Titan shifter, they would lose access to their Titan forms and be ejected from the nape automatically. However, pure Titans didn't have human forms after transformation. Or rather, their Titan form was now their true form without possibility of reverting back to normal. Hence, when Seiji had cancelled its Titan abilities, it caused a self-collapse, instantly killing the creature. Come to think of, Seiji realized that these abilities were better than Sasuke's and Itachi's. Perhaps even Obito's. However, the direct overwhelming offensive prowess wasn't granted. In a fight with shinobi, especially ones like Itachi, Obito and Danzo, nothing was guaranteed. It was more than a battle between Mangekyo Sharingan. Even with his eyes, killing Itachi wasn't guaranteed, not to mention Danzo, with a literal arm full of Izanagi. He would run out of pupil power before he could come close to flattening Konoha and ultimately run blind. With all these points, Seiji knew what he had to do. The classic training montage. He would use the available time to improve himself as much as possible, just like Sasuke did. Increase his taijutsu prowess. Speed, strength, and stamina. Master the jutsu scrolls he had brought along with him. Ninjutsu, genjutsu, kenjutsu. In a ninjutsu variety, forget about Madara's fire-style power, but he should not be weaker than Itachi. His proficiency in genjutsu must be good enough to avoid being defeated by a single look like Orochimaru and Kakashi. alongside mastering nature transformation of chakra attributes. He planned to give himself from 6 months to a year. Following which, he would either return or travel to new worlds. In the world of Ayat, as long as he still had chakra, he had nothing to fear. It wasn't an exaggeration to say he was the strongest being in this world just by virtue of the body flicker technique, kenjutsu and the dynamic vision his eyes granted him. Hence in the coming time, he would work himself to the bone, honing his eyes, refining his chakra and increasing his combat prowess until he squeezed every advantage he could get out of this world. At that moment, the resting Uchiha opened his eyes, surprised to find his chakra capacity refilled. It had only been a few hours. Usually, it would take more than a day and a half of rest to return to full capacity. Even more surprising was it didn't stop there. Instead, he could feel the vibrant activity in his body cells, releasing more energy with each passing second. Ah! There's my bonus chakra. The boost in mental energy would lead to a growth in chakra reserves. And what greater boost could there be than the increase in yin attribute chakra provided by the Sharingan evolution? It didn't matter how bad they were before, but once their eyes were opened, all Uchiha would become geniuses. Seiji slowly stood to his feet as he felt his reserves passively increasing at a much faster pace than his active refining of it. The increase in chakra wasn't immediate. After all, that much energy couldn't suddenly appear out of nowhere. But just from this pace, his current chakra reserves would multiply 10 times on the original basis by this time in 2 days. Logical, since his Mangekyo abilities consumed so much energy. Not to mention Susanoo, the literal embodiment of solidified chakra. In hindsight, he should also receive an increase in physical prowess. I see. No wonder Itachi alone could slaughter the entire clan without utilizing a single jutsu. This power truly is incredible. He thought as he looked out the window, using chakra to boost his 5 senses. It was getting dark out. Throughout this time, no titans had returned to the village again. With his chakra replenished, he couldn't stay here anymore. After all, night would soon fall, and he would prefer spending his evening on a bed and not in a sleeping bag. Alright then, just one more thing before I leave. He uttered, moving out of the house and out of the village. Upon reaching a secluded area, he quickly placed his hands together and performed hand seals. Doten, Doryuha tu dun tu lu bo, earth style, earth flow wave. The ground instantly split open, creating a large hole in the soil. The earth release he performed was AC rank technique. Common to Chunin and above with most genin. And his reason for performing it was simple. With the hole made, the young Uchiha took out a sealing scroll, rolled it open and infused chakra. With a puff of smoke, a corpse appeared. It was his grandma's, Asami. Gazing upon her smiling face, the unsettling feeling of loss he had placed aside rushed up again like a tidal wave. Taking a deep breath, he restrained the emotions within him and placed her into a stone coffin. It was improper to carry her body around in a scroll-like luggage. Burying her was the least he could do. A suffocating silence engulfed the atmosphere, followed by a restless wind stirring. This wasn't an illusion. Presently, Seiji stared at the simple grave he had created, and his eyes involuntarily became scarlet. The chakra pressure in his body was released uncontrollably as he clenched his fists tightly. Though it was nowhere near the level of Hashirama Senju though, and couldn't send out torrents of wind pressure. I swear to you, Grandma. The final rays of the setting sun illuminated his features. I will do as you asked. I will kill Itachi, kill Danzo, and revive the Uchiha clan. Even if it's the last thing I do. No one could understand how he felt. Not Sasuke, not Naruto, not Obito, not Nagato. None of them would understand the despair of knowing what would happen and being unable to change it. Itachi destroyed his clan for Konoha, for Sasuke. All to prevent war, he sacrificed his clan and the ones he loved for the greater good. For the well-being of the village. Even if they would never know of his efforts. A true Konoha shinobi to the last breath, even better in this regard than Shisui, his teacher. As for whether his actions were morally right or wrong. In a world where children were trained to kill from a young age, that was debatable. As a transmigrator, Seiji knew this. Hence, in his last life, he understood Itachi's burdens to an extent. Now. He couldn't care less. Probably how Sasuke feels, huh? He thought to himself with a self-depreciating smile. In his eyes, the naked murderous intention emanating without reservation. The Mangekyo was most likely affecting him at this point. Twisting his mind and fueling his hatred. He cared less for this as well. Unlike Sasuke, unlike Obito, unlike Nagato, he had plot knowledge. And in time, he would make them all feel the same pain he did. All of it, 10 times over. I swear it. He moved his hands, the hole was covered up. Using earth style, he manipulated the earth and created a large tombstone. On the top, several words were written on it. To my beloved Nana, a woman who didn't belong to this world. Doing this, he closed his eyes, took a deep breath and opened them again. The Sharingan was gone, alongside the intent to murder everything in sight. Alright, let's get out of here. It was time to start fulfilling his goals. Locating wall rose for 1. 2. Understanding the timeline. The Attack on Titan world was quite weak compared to the ninja world. A moderate shinobi clan would be able to clear all titans on this island given enough time. However, his time here wouldn't be useless. There were things he could gain that would greatly improve his strength. Junin no Sozoku. 10-year creation continuity. His right eye technique had a 10-year cooldown. The sooner it was used, the earlier he could look forward to its second usage. And he already had the perfect ability in mind. He thought as he crossed over a river. The moment he did, his steps paused as he noticed something in the soil. Bending down, he examined them and easily determined what they were. Tracks. Footprints to be exact. Seiji couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. These weren't old. Quite the contrary, they were fresh, possible no more than a few hours as well, meaning that someone had. In that moment, the boy remembered something. Of the 19 soldiers in our flank, I'm the last survivor. The rest were all decimated. 19. Plus you, I only counted 18 corpses. It was a brief flashback to the discussion he had with the soldier. Oh. The realization hit. Earlier, he had noticed 18 survey corps bodies instead of 19. The dying soldier speculated that one was eaten whole. Seiji walked a few feet forward. What came into his sight was a damaged ODM gear and ratchet belt on the floor. Followed by footprints running into the distance. Guess he was wrong then. In the 2nd Brigade of the leftmost flank, someone had survived. Abandoning their damaged ODM gear as it would be of no use. The footsteps meant the target was traveling on foot. If that was the case, then whoever this person is, he is most probably dead by now. In Titan-infested lands, without ODM gear, weapons, or a horse, death was inevitable. However, the tracks lead north. It was clear that this person was heading in the direction of the walls. Death was a certainty, of course. Seiji knew that, and the person in question probably knew as well. Concluding this, he turned to take one last long at the village before heading in the same direction. Who knows, maybe he would catch up before she got eaten by a titan. Pav change. Meanwhile. My name is Ilsa Langner. In the Titan-infested wastelands of Wal Maria, hidden beside a tree, a female member wearing the standard uniform of the Survey Corps jotted words unceasingly in her diary. I've lost my horse in the world outside the walls. 17 comments 0 vote. Chapter 5, 2 different worlds. Pav change. Meanwhile. My name is Ilsa Langner. In the Titan-infested wastelands of Wal Maria, hidden beside a tree, a female member wearing the standard uniform of the Survey Corps jotted words unceasingly in her diary. I engaged in the 34th Reconnaissance Mission, as part of the 2nd Brigade of the leftmost flank. We encountered Titans on our return route. I lost both my horse and my fellow soldiers. I also discarded my malfunctioning maneuver gear. I'm heading north. I've lost my horse in the world outside the walls. I can't escape from the Titans on foot. I've lost all my comrades. Heading home. Even survival seems impossible. The girl wrote in her journal. Tears glistening in her eyes and fear in her heart. After confirming the coast was clear, she took to her heels and began running. But I might be able to reach the wall. That's my plan. The key is to not give in to fear. I must be careful, always keep an eye out, and try my best to not get spotted. Rain fell that night. Once again, she huddled in an opening on a large tree, her cape hood over her head to shield herself. In her hands, the journal on which she scribbled on constantly, like a dying individual finalizing her last will. I was prepared for this the moment I joined the Recon Battalion. I am mankind's wing that does not fear death. I am a Survey Corps soldier. Luckily, no Titans found her. The nighttime was as much a period of rest for Titans as it was for humans. Leaving the tree the next morning, the perilous journey resumed. Even if my life is already lost, I'll fight to the bitter end. I may not have weapons, but I can still fight. Time elapsed. Ilsa had run for hours without stopping. all the while jotting down tirelessly, conscious every word could be her last. I'll record every moment in this notebook. Inside a natural forest, she ran quickly, her gaze fixed on the journal as she raised her head periodically. I'll do everything I can. Without noticing, she ran into an open clearing in an area surrounded by tall trees. I will not give up, I will lay my life if I. At that moment, she rushed past a tree. Raising her head, the scene she saw nearly scared away her soul. Two particularly large eyes, on a large face with blonde hair huddled beside the tree, watching her blankly as she ran past. Time seemed to slow down infinitely. Ilsa and the Titan had a face-off, with her face changing with every passing millisecond. Then she ran past. The Titan snapped, lunging forward and biting down. The girl dodged, rolling on the floor as she ran back, turned to face the Titan, and fell on her ass. The Titan crawled on all fours, backing her up against the tree. At that moment, fear gripped her. The little hope she held out on reaching wall rose after almost 14 hours of surviving dissipated with the wind. Tears streamed down her cheeks in torrents, and her body shook like a leaf in an evening storm. The hands holding the journal trembled. I will not give up. She repeated, steeling her resolve amidst her fear and panic, and resumed writing. I've encountered a Titan. A7, no, more like a 6-meter class. It hasn't eaten me yet, is it an aberrant? Her hair rustled with the wind that came from its breath. The Titan was so close, barely inches away from her face. Now, I stare death in the face. This is the end for me. I've only lived for myself. I haven't done anything for my parents yet. I feel sick. The Titan drew closer, opening its mouth. I'm a goner. She thought and wrote her last entry before closing her eyes in wait for an inevitable death. Person, of. Ymir. Her body stiffened in shock. Her eyes opening slowly as the voice fell into her ears. It was a deep, guttural voice with an echoing tone. The most unbelievable part was that it came from the Titan before her. And that wasn't all. The Titan slowly withdrew its head away, and took several steps back. It spoke. The Titan spoke. Impossible. In shock, she saw it suddenly lower itself. Miss Ymir. It is an honor. It lasted for several seconds. The shock that is. Until she finally remembered to jot it down. It didn't eat me. Instead, it actually spoke. Its words make sense. Person of Ymir. Miss Ymir, it is an honor. Those were the exact words. I'm sure of it. In her thoughts, she noticed its expression. The Titan's expression has changed. It's paying its respects to me, unbelievable. The fear was diluted, probably from the sheer surprise and absurdity of what was happening. Titans didn't talk, nor could they be communicated with. It was conclusive evidence, tried and tested over 100 years. It could never go wrong. And yet, today it did. Probably for the first time in history, a human is communicating with a Titan. What are you? She asked, fidgeting. Moan. The Titan moans in response. Not moving from its position. Where are you from? It remained silent. Why do you eat us? Finally, a reaction. Unfortunately, it wasn't what she was expecting. The Titan grabbed its face, letting out moans as if crying. Ilsa thought so at first. The next, however, her face was clouded in fear as the Titan began pulling at its own cheeks. It pulled, as if fighting against something. So hard that tearing sounds emerged. Its skin was ripped off, the underlying flesh revealed. Blood poured out. Ilsa's face changed drastically, not understanding why the Titan was harming itself. Turning, she took to her heels and ran as fast as she could. At that moment, those big pair of eyes shifted in her direction. Then it stopped its actions and ran after her. The scared Ilsa ran for her life, rushing back in the same direction she came from. The sound of a rapid advance behind her made her expression pale. What's? It happened then. The moment she turned, the Titan grabbed her lower body with one hand firmly. All the while letting out roaring noises with its teeth clenched. No. Ilsa screamed in fear. She saw it, the Titan's eyes, with blood streaming down its edges, like it was crying. All while moving her into its mouth, placing her head in between its teeth. The girl held her journal near her face, pen scribbling even at death's door. I'm caught. I'm done. Big mouth, it smells. She felt the pressure on her head increase. Many teeth, not sharp, breath is warm. The Titan bit down. Waiting alone is. Squelch. Blood splattered. Ilsa's eyes widened, her heart jumping to her throat. At that moment, time seemed to freeze. Then, it happened. She felt the grip on her body loosen, the jaws about to sever her neck grew weak. Thud. The Titan fell, Ilsa still within its hands, seemingly petrified. I'm alive. Ilsa muttered as she looked at the towering treetops. Tears still streaming down her face as she processed what had just happened. It was the first time. The first time being so close to death. In that state of confusion, she heard footsteps walking in her direction, causing her to flinch. Ilsa froze for a moment. Her breath hitching as the steps came closer. Until they stopped right beside her, revealing a pair of feet in sandals. In front of her was a young boy. Black hair and black eyes in black clothing. Straight, long hair dropping past his chin, quite tall with a blood-stained sword that was releasing steam in his hand. The blood. Her eyes fell on the weapon, noting the evaporating steam. He killed it. Ilsa thought, her eyes on his features. He didn't utter a word, just looking at her embarrassed state impassively. In which she mirrored, still not fully recovering from the near-death experience. Time elapsed as the silence stretched for a dozen seconds. Eventually. You are. The traumatized female broke the silence. Her body stiff and her hands clutching her journal tightly. Unfortunately, she received no answer. The dark-haired youth with a young face, probably her age or younger, seemed not to have heard her. The silence was suffocating. Ilsa thought at least. Then, he finally moved. All she saw was him raising his sword upward. Her eyes widened. He's going to kill me. A gleam of sunlight was reflected off the blade, blinding her. She hurriedly closed her eyes and curled up involuntarily. Time passed. The piercing pain never came. In that silence. Thud, thud, thud. The sound of footsteps resumed again. Only this time, they were moving away. Ilsa opened her eyes slowly, only to see the dark-haired boy walking into the distance. The sword thought to slay here was now inside its sheath as he left. Ilsa, stunned, watched as he vanished into the trees. Turning her gaze, what came into sight was the Titan corpse that was emitting steam. Immediately, her face changed upon realizing something. Following which, she got up to her feet and ran after him. Hey. Wait. Meanwhile. Ninja World. Konoha Village, the night of the Uchiha Massacre. First, you have my thanks. In a hidden area of the village, the third Hokage looked at the bright moon in the sky. While speaking to the ninja kneeling behind him. Civil war has been averted in the hidden leaf. We have maintained peace. Slightly obscured by the darkness, a 13-year-old teenager in an Anbu uniform with two tear moles on his face replied. Yes. Itachi Uchiha. However, I regret there was no other way to achieve this. Sarutobi Hiruzen added. I apologize. Itachi responded. No, it is I who must apologize. The third Hokage uttered, a long-lasting regret lingering on his tone. You will now be branded a rogue ninja. Who massacred his entire clan. And be listed in the bingo book as a fugitive, wanted dead or alive. To this, Itachi didn't even blink and lowered his posture a little more. That goes without saying. Sarutobi Hiruzen turned slightly. What will you do now? I've found aid from a group called the Akatsuki. I intend to stay close to them, in order to make sure a promise is not broken. Itachi paused for a moment. A slight frown illuminating his features. However, there is one thing I need to report. In the clan, 2 Uchiha were unaccounted for. Oh. Who? Asami Uchiha, a former elite jonin of the Uchiha Clan. Old and retired. Alongside her grandson, Seiji Uchiha. 17 years old, Chunin. They escaped. Yes. Their chakra signatures disappeared entirely moments before I confronted them. My search throughout Konoha was in vain. I believe they may no longer be in the leaf, perhaps even the land of fire. I see, Itachi. Hiruzen murmured. His brain running into gear. How exactly do you think he achieved this? I believe he may have opened the Mangekyo Sharingan, like me. For the first time, the third Hokage had his experience changed dramatically. How? The Uchiha don't have the capabilities to transverse long distances. And just before I was about to confront him, I sensed his chakra had become erratic. Coupled with the blood I saw in his home. I'm led to believe that Seiji might have sacrificed his grandmother, and awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan as a result. Each sentence deepened the frown on Hiruzen's face. If this speculation is true, it also means he has awakened time and space abilities. Just like the fourth Hokage, Namikaze Minato and traveled a long distance away. In reference to this, Itachi referenced Namikaze Minato instead of Obito, who was currently parading as Madara Uchiha. This piece of information was never revealed to the village elders for several reasons. 1. Madara's explicit warning. 2. Sasuke's future. The first could be ignored. The latter was not to be taken lightly. Itachi thought. Meanwhile, Hiruzen was currently in deep thought. An Uchiha missing from the village was one thing. But an Uchiha who had awakened the Mangekyo was another. Even if this was just speculation, he needed to take this much more seriously. The power of those eyes. Apart from his teacher, Lord First and Danzo, no one else in Konoha knew better than him. Itachi standing behind him was a living example. The dead Shishui was the same. Especially the latter's pupil technique, Koto Matsukami. Even he, the Hokage, was wary. A new Uchiha threat. And one who knew the actual truth behind the Uchiha massacre. Hiruzen didn't know if he would be able to sleep properly in the coming nights. I plan to seek him out upon leaving Konoha. To end this once and for all. Itachi said at that moment. I see. Thank you for revealing me this, Itachi. You have done well. The third Hokage let out a breath. It's all for the village, sir. For peace. Itachi said. And with a body flicker, he disappeared on the spot. Leaving Sarutobi Hiruzen to gaze at the moon high in the sky. Indeed. For peace indeed. 10 comments 0 vote. Chapter 6, The Walls. Pav change. Inside the forests. 3 miles from Wall Rose. A group of titans could be seen gathering underneath a tall tree. The tallest of them being 10-meter class. Many scratched and clawed at the tree, almost as if they wished to climb it. Others either stood aside, or sat nearby. Not performing meaningless work like the rest of their kind. However, their eyes never left the tree for a single second. The reason? Hey! Ilsa called out hesitantly at Seiji. Nesting on a branch at the top of the tree was dinner. 2 humans, sitting without movement. Ilsa Langner, Seiji Uchiha. What? Resting against the tree with his eyes closed, Seiji responded. I was just curious if. The girl fiddled shyly. It happened then. The sound of a rumbling stomach interrupted her before she could finish her words. Time seemed to freeze. Seeing him raise an eyebrow, Ilsa's face flushed rapidly as she lowered her head, too embarrassed to look at him. You're hungry. It had been several hours since Seiji rescued the female from the talking titan. It was no surprise that upon leaving, she decided to follow him. After all, it had been almost 24 hours since she had been on the run. Every second of it spent fearing she would meet a grisly demise. To which she nearly did. Now seeing another human being, even if she didn't know who Seiji was, she followed without hesitation. It had been quite some time since then. However, the joy of having company was quickly diluted by. That's right, Ilsa was hungry. Her last meal was before the Survey Corps departed for Trost, and whatever she may have felt was suppressed by the fear of death. It was different now. The things she had seen along the way after rescue had lessened her trauma. However, she was still a girl after all. Asking a stranger she had barely met for food was slightly embarrassing. Her stomach, however, seemed not to care for her difficulties, openly voicing its needs and protest for her dawdling. In response to Seiji's question, the girl let out a low hum. Seiji frowned slightly. Ilsa's heart sank. That's right, he doesn't have anything on him. I asked if he had food so stupidly when he probably doesn't. What was I? Her thought process was interrupted. Under her incredulous expression, the dark-haired boy reached for a scroll and rolled it open. Then placed his hands on the piece of paper and puff. A puff of smoke emerged slightly, blocking her vision. When it faded, 4 cans had seemingly appeared out of nowhere. Ilsa was silent. Was this a magic trick? She had seen similar outrageous things during the hours before ending up on this tree. Even then, this took the cake. Eat up. 2 were tossed at her before she could process what had just happened. Ilsa fumbled as she caught them, causing one to fall off the tree. My bad. Ilsa smiled awkwardly. Seiji didn't react, and turned to his food after giving her a look. These were the rations he had prepared for his departure from Konoha. A lot of it was stored up so he didn't feel bad if one was lost. Even if it was in the midst of titans, he could retrieve it if he wanted to. However, knowing the world he was in wasn't an apocalyptic wasteland with no food or water, he didn't feel pressed to do so. It would be better to conserve the chakra required to use the body flicker technique to get it back. Not to mention, what was in that canister wasn't food, but water. Their time after was spent in silence, with Ilsa finally getting a meal. Thank you. The silence was broken once again. Seiji looked at the female soldier. Short black hair that was parted to the right side, lightly tanned skin, and gold-colored eyes with a small patch of freckles below each one. You know, for saving me back then. The young Uchiha blinked. I heard you the first time you thanked me. The silence returned once again. Ilsa felt vaguely uncomfortable. Her mouth opening and closing constantly as if she wanted to ask something but didn't dare to. My name is Ilsa Langner. I'm a Survey Corps soldier. She tried introducing herself. The dark-haired boy didn't raise his head. I already know who you are. Seiji responded apathetically, not giving his name in return. Memories from his last life replayed in his subconscious. Ilsa Langner, Survey Corps member. In the Attack on Titan series, she wasn't a notable character of any sort. In fact, she had died long before the Battle of Trost Arc, where the Colossal Titan made its second appearance. Worst still, her only appearance wasn't in the main anime, but rather, the OVAs released after the end of Season 4. Ilsa's Notebook was the name of the episode. In which, Ilsa Langner, a Survey Corps member, was stranded outside the walls with no horse, weapons, food, or ODM gear. In her perilous quest to make it home, she would come face to face with a Titan who could actually talk, who mistook her for a more prominent Attack on Titan character, Ymir, the current holder of the Jaw Titan. In the anime, her sole purpose was to record the talking Titan's existence in her journal before meeting a swift end in its hands. Her journal being found by Levi, Hange, and Squad Levi the following year alongside her corpse. A side character but a named one nonetheless. It was sad, really. As a previous AOT fan, Seiji had realized this the moment he heard the Titan speak in Bo. As for when he had arrived. Well, he had caught up the time she ran into the forest. Meanwhile. You know who I am. Ilsa was stunned. Mainly because she didn't know him at all. And frankly, she doubted she would forget someone who looked so. Ahem. Well, could leave such a lasting impression. She hadn't seen someone who looked like Seiji before. Mainly because unlike the vast majority of Paradisians, Seiji came from the ninja world, and hence, looked and dressed like an Asian. In Parody Island, Asians were nearly extinct. I don't know him. She thought internally. Could he perhaps be one of the ones mom wanted to set me up with? The Survey Corps was a verified meat grinder. No surprise, her parents had vehemently been against her joining the scouts. And like all children who had come of age, she decided to do it anyway. As a result, her mother had been trying desperately to get her a boyfriend. Every time she returned home, her mom always clamored something about giving birth to a grandchild before she killed herself in her suicidal cause. Worst of all, her father didn't object. They had a point. It was impossible to deny, but she was 19 for God's sake. Could you perhaps be someone my parents know? No. Seiji responded. I don't know your parents. I knew you, however, when it confused you for Ymir. Wait, he means the talking Titan. Her eyes widened instantly. You know who the Titan was talking about? Ilsa asked, eager to obtain information. Yep. Tell me, who is it? She asks urgently with bated breaths as she stared at the dark-haired youth before her. In response. No. Seiji replied apathetically, with no intention of raising his head. No. Ilsa sat speechless. Not knowing how to respond. What, why? Why should I? That. The girl stuttered. This could be valuable information. A breakthrough that could lead to a revolution. To humanity's victory over the Titans. It could save many lives, and perhaps help many more. Don't you care? Seiji paused, his eating movements slowing for a second as he looked at her. No. Watching him eat, a strange sense of frustration began to well up within. She didn't understand why he would say the things he said. Nor could she understand what he meant by he didn't care. He was human too. Wasn't he? Why did he say that? And why is he out here in the first place? She thought inwardly. No other human apart from the Survey Corps were supposed to be on the other side of the walls. What was he doing then? Perhaps, he left himself. From what I've seen, he can certainly do that. But why? And how can he even do what he can do? Who is this Ymir? In the time they had spent together, she had seen things that made her doubt everything she had been taught. I mean, it wasn't the first time seeing someone kill these monsters so effortlessly. However, it certainly was the first seeing a human who could do so without ODM gear or cannons. During the walk, he hardly replied to her inquiries, seeming to treasure his words like gold. When they came into an area with multiple titans, he had simply grabbed her and leapt up into the trees, leading to the current situation where a small titan horde was below. In this time, the male before her had displayed superhuman strength and agility. Speed beyond human limits. Vanishing and reappearing like a phantom. And now, pulling food out of thin air. He was fast, strong, and seemingly a man of few words. It reminded her of what she heard of the squad captain of the Special Operations Squad, Levi Ackerman. Just, younger and not as short. But Levi couldn't do what he could. At least, she didn't know if he was capable of killing titans without ODM equipment. Ilsa felt strange. Something didn't add up, and it wasn't just because of what he could do. He didn't even seem to be surprised by the talking titan, either. But that would mean he knew why it could talk. No, perhaps he knows even more than that. Like who the titans are, what they are, and why they eat us. Incredible. Yet, if he knows, then why not say anything? Inwardly analyzing, her thoughts spiraled more and more, unable to reach a definite conclusion. Who exactly is he? It was unknown how long she spent in her thoughts. However. All right, time to go. The voice made her flinch. Looking up, she was surprised to see him standing. Huh. Now. Would you rather stay here then? Seiji asked. The girl was stunned. Following which, she looked down. What came into view was the numerous pupils all eyeing her. No. She stands up with a slight shiver. Seeing this, Seiji stretches out his hand. Huh. Slightly confused, she reaches out to hold it. Then yelps as he pulls her to him and holds her close. Unfortunately, Seiji couldn't care for her reaction. With her close, sensing his surroundings, he immediately used the body flicker technique. Under the constant gaze of the titans underneath, the figures of both humans turned into a blur before disappearing into thin air. Loud groans resounded instantly from the aberrant titans, who just watched their meal disappear. They got up to their feet, their gazes moving in all directions to no avail. Meanwhile, Ilsa gripped Seiji's arm tightly as the wind howled past her ears. The speed at which they moved was unlike anything she had ever experienced. No horse, no ODM gear maneuver could compare. It was almost unnatural, almost inhuman. The trees blurred beneath them as Seiji effortlessly leapt from branch to branch, covering miles within moments. Her mind struggled to comprehend it. This isn't just skill. This is something else entirely. Her breath hitched as she dared to glance downward. The titans, those mindless, grotesque monsters, were nothing but specks in the distance now. If she hadn't felt the way her body lurched with every movement, she would have thought they had just vanished into thin air. Hold on tighter, Seiji muttered. Ilsa barely had time to react before he shifted his grip and moved even faster. Her arms instinctively wrapped around him, clinging for dear life. The heat of his body against her own was a stark contrast to the cold sweat clinging to her back. For a female who had experienced little male contact, the proximity, the unfamiliarity, it was overwhelming. Her face turned red. What am I even thinking about in this situation? Forcing herself to focus on something, anything, else. Meanwhile. I see. Chakra sensing doesn't work here. Leaping from tree to tree, Seiji didn't notice Ilsa's peculiarity. Instead, absorbed in his own thoughts. The reason he and Ilsa had ended up on that tree was because Seiji had unknowingly led them to that area. Not realizing that multiple titans were up ahead. Almost 20 of them. With so many rushing up at once, Seiji would find it difficult to protect himself, much less an additional burden. The body flicker technique was capable of boosting a ninja's speed to extreme levels. The drawbacks, however, were just as prominent. Going at too fast a speed meant potentially overwhelming one's own senses. If you couldn't follow your movement speed, then you could slam into any object in your path. As an Uchiha, he didn't have this problem. But that wasn't the technique's only weakness. It had limited range. No more than 150 meters at a time. The greater the distance, the larger the chakra consumed proportionally. The physical body had to be capable of withstanding such fast movement, even with chakra blessing. Hence, leading to quick exhaustion. Not to mention, as an evasion and travel technique, it was notoriously difficult to utilize in battle. So much so that Shishui, who accomplished such a feat, was given the title, Shishui of the Body Flicker. Extra movement, twist and turns, rapid change of direction, instant usage after already performing a body flicker. It was too difficult, requiring exceptional, almost inhumane control over one's own body. As an ordinary Chunin, Seiji was no exception. With titans in all directions, he would have to be careful, even with chakra-boosted speed. Ilsa would instantly become titan food. Hence, he simply carried her above their reach, all the while pondering why he hadn't noticed the titans. Now, he had his answer. Chakra. Or rather, the Titan's lack of it. In the ninja world, every living being had chakra. From humans, to animals, to trees. It was impossible not to possess it, as having no chakra essentially meant death. This was the law of the ninja world. This world, however, had different laws, and only now was it fully dawning on him what it meant to leave the world of Naruto. Chakra didn't exist here, hence, a lot of things would become much more complicated. For example, chakra sensing. Sensory-type ninjas used chakra sensing to perceive people far away. It was effective on inanimate objects, as those things lacked chakra. Seiji, who was used to chakra perception, didn't realize that until now. This meant that in the world of Attack on Titan, everything was an inanimate object in this regard. From humans to trees, to titans, it all lacked chakra. Making his chakra perception useless. In that case, it might not be the only thing. I'm afraid genjutsu in this world is virtually impossible too. He thought without stopping his movements. Time elapsed. Eventually, they landed at the edge of the tree line. Ahead, the walls loomed, standing as an indomitable reminder of humanity's fragile sanctuary. Ilsa barely noticed. Her legs trembled as Seiji loosened his grip and set her down. She took a step forward and nearly collapsed, clearly unused to being carried at such speeds. Whoa! She caught herself, her breath coming in short gasps. That was. Her voice halted as she noticed what stood in the distance. Instantly, her eyes moistened at the sight of it. We made it. A day and a night trapped outside, and upon returning, those old walls had never looked more beautiful. What she thought was nearly impossible was now within reach. Home, she was going home. Her legs quickened as she ran down the small hill, a smile plastered on her face. Come on, we're going, huh? Ilsa stopped. Realizing that she was the only one running. Turning around, she saw Seiji still standing in the same spot. Hey, aren't you coming? No. Ilsa. Not this again. What do you mean? Seiji swept his gaze into the distance. It's been nice meeting you. But this is where we part ways. Ilsa's eyes widened. You can't be serious. I am. But staying outside the walls is dangerous. I'll manage. Ilsa looked at him, then at the walls in the distance. The open fields to trust suddenly seemed much longer. His lack of ODM gear. His strange fighting style. His refusal to share information. It had been eating at her the entire time. And now, as they stood on the precipice of safety, the truth felt more apparent than ever. You're not from here. Or you? Is that why you won't follow me into the walls? You have no idea. Wondered how long it would take her to figure that out. Seiji thought with a roll of his eyes. I guess you could say that. Why? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Seiji exhaled through his nose. I have no reason to. But you're human. She argued. And you're out here alone, doing things no normal person can do. You could tell us everything. About the Titans, about that talking one, so many people have died already. What you know could help us. The desperation in her voice was evident, and Seiji could hear it. But that didn't change his stance. I saved your life, he said. That's all I felt like doing. The rest isn't my concern. Ilsa clenched her fists. She knew arguing wouldn't work, but it frustrated her. Why are you even out here? She demanded. What is someone like you doing outside the walls? Seiji stared at her for a long moment. He could tell she was trying to piece things together in her head, but her knowledge of the world was too limited. Even if she had suspicions, there was no way she'd ever guess the truth. Let's just say I'm biding my time here. I'll leave once I accomplish my goal, he finally said. Ilsa frowned. What could you possibly be here for? Seiji turned away from her and began walking toward the tree line. If I ever decide to tell anyone, he said over his shoulder, you'll be the first to know. Ilsa opened her mouth to argue again, but the words died in her throat. She had no authority over him. No way to convince him. At least tell me your name. He paused. Well, there was no harm there. Seiji Uchiha. Seiji didn't wait for a response. In a blink, his body vanished from sight. Ilsa's breath caught in her throat. He disappeared again, she murmured. Then turned back again after searching but finding nothing. The walls of Wall Rose waited in the distance. Mom, Dad. I'm coming, everyone. As she ran toward the entrance, she clutched her notebook tightly. Her mind was in turmoil. Who is Seiji Uchiha? What does he know? And, why does he refuse to help? She had no answers. Only questions. And for the first time since joining the Survey Corps, she feared the truth. Alright, this is the end of the Outside the Walls arc. 6 chapters in. Let me know how well the FF is so far. 21 comments, 0 votes.